Susan B. Anthony, you're not eating your dinner. Oh, I don't like that. I don't like that one bit. Hope you're not coming down with something. Well, there's nothing wrong with your appetite, Amelia Bloomer.
Mrs. Potter?
Oh, Dinah. Well, now you know my dreadful secret. I talk to goldfish. Suppose the time to start worrying is when they start talking back. What is it, child? What's happened?
I've, just been expelled from school.
Expelled? Well, why on earth?
I fainted in class on Monday. The school nurse guessed what it was. There wasn't much point in lying. Of course, she told the principal, and he told the school board. They're expelling me because I'm going to have a baby.
Dinah?
Oh. I didn't mean to tell you this way.
Oh.
Please don't be disgusted with me. I'm disgusted with myself.
Does your father know? No.
Yes, I told him as soon as I knew. What do you mean about being expelled? Mr. Stevens spoke to him this morning.
Well, I suppose he agreed it was for the best and decided you'd better pay a visit to that aunt of yours in Pennsylvania.
Ohio. And it's not for the best. It's not what I want.
Now, what do you want?
It's 2 months to graduation. I want to graduate.
But surely that's not the most important thing, the baby.
I want to graduate before I have a baby.
What about the father? The baby's father?
I haven't told him.
But you must.
Why? What can he do? He's only a high school boy.
Nevertheless, he's responsible.
I'm responsible. I was stupid.
But he has an obligation. You both have an obligation.
I can't marry him. I don't love him.
Well, isn't it time to consider the baby?
I am considering the baby. I wouldn't be giving him a father to love him and want him. What good is a name if the name is a lie? It would only be a device. It would be hypocritical. I do have an obligation to my baby. I'm obligated to finish school and go on with my life. I can't let them stop me now. Graduation is the beginning. I have to begin.
Well, if you're going to fight, it will take a lot more than determination, my dear. It will take a good deal of strength. Are you strong enough to defy convention and oppose its arbiters?
I don't know. Help.
No. No. Oh, my dear, I don't believe I have the strength for a fight. Now, tell me what you want me to do.
Talk to the school board. They'll listen to you. They have to. The school is named after you.
Why, everyone's forgotten why. I don't go any farther than the corner drugstore these days. Everybody's forgotten I'm alive. But, Lord, maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm just a ghost haunting an old house and talking to my flowers and my fish and... Oh, the little girl next door who grew up too suddenly.
You're the only one who can help me. I don't know where else to turn.
I'll try. Perhaps someone will listen.
This portion of The Defenders is presented by Cool Cigarettes for the extra coolness you can feel in your throat. Cool Filter Kings with the pure white filter.
Quite a game. Yeah, man. I'm all in. I'm all out of cigarettes. Here, have one of mine. No, I guess I'll pass. A couple of hours of this, they don't taste like much anyway. I think you'll like these. Have a cool. Cool, huh?
Your cigarette's not tasting cool enough till you come up to cool. Cool's menthol magic brightens taste, refreshing all day through.
Feel extra coolness in your
your throat as cool comes through for you.
Well, great. That's what I told you.
You're not smoking cool, cool, cool enough till you come up to cool.
Cool Filter Kings with the pure white filter. Feel that extra coolness in your throat. Smoke cool.
Who is Mary Alice Trotter?
Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Carrie Chapman Catt, Mary Alice
right?
Trotter, yes.
Suffragette. She must be 100 years old by now.
Oh, no. Women didn't get to vote in this country until 1920.
Well, it was after 70 years of some pretty wild demonstrations.
Yes, we sometimes forget that the suffragettes were more courageous than comical. Takes real guts to subject yourself to the ridicule and abuse they took.
What did she do, Mary Alice Trotter?
In 1916, she chained herself to the front portico of the governor's mansion.
Kind of a premature sit-in.
She invented it.
Yeah, I suppose she was arrested for disorderly conduct, too.
Yes, she became a national heroine in the fight for women's rights.
Why'd she write us, Dan?
She was an old friend of my father's.
Well, how does getting pregnant girls reinstated in high school fall under the heading of women's rights?
Well, she's coming here at 4:30 this afternoon to discuss it. Why don't you ask her then?
Well, of course, I'm chiefly concerned with Dinah Caldwell and her rights, but I wouldn't be a bit unhappy if we set a precedent.
Well, who handled your legal affairs back home, Mrs. Trotter?
Tom Aufterheide, but I haven't gone to him with this because, unfortunately, he happens to be president of the school board.
Ah, well, I can see how there'd be a certain conflict of interest.
Have you talked to him about the girl?
Yes, we've already had some interesting conflict. He insists that the board's decision was final.
Well, as your lawyer, he might also have told you that there's a bare possibility that the decision can be reversed.
How?
Through injunction. Prove to a court that the school board's ruling was arbitrary.
Well, don't make it sound too easy, Dad. You may give Mrs. Trotter false hopes there.
No, Mrs. Trotter happens to believe that no hope is false.
It's at least worth a try, Ken. I'll stay here in town for the Maxwell hearing and the Brown appeal, and you go with Mrs. Trotter and help her on her case.
I'd be everlastingly grateful.
Well,
Our train is 6:05 tomorrow.
that's 6:05 a.m., Mrs. Trotter?
Isn't that convenient?
No, that's all right. I can pick you up at your hotel at 5:30.
Good. I won't keep you any longer, and I thank you both very, very, very much.
Mrs. Trotter, it's a joy seeing you again. It's been much too long.
You know, I've always admired the women of the suffrage movement. I've never understood how they triumphed. I mean, till now, of course.
Oh, isn't that a nice thing to hear at my age? Now, I have to be completely honest with you both. There's another reason why I didn't choose a local attorney. I was quite active before the last war, serving on this committee and that for dear President Roosevelt. Franklin, you know, not Teddy. I lost my son in the war, and I've kept pretty much to myself these past several years. Well, small town, you know, that's unnatural. That's even a little suspicious. And the truth is, I was afraid to go to a local lawyer for fear he'd think I was just a cracked old woman tilting at windmills.
I've called you here in response to your letter to the board, applying for a review. The board has every right to ask for the dismissal of a pregnant girl. I thought I made that plain to Mrs. Trotter. But if she has money to spend on a New York lawyer, that's up to her.
Well, couldn't the board at least give the girl a hearing?
No, Counselor. No hearing.
And you refuse to reconsider?
Speaking for myself and the board, yes. The courthouse is across the street.
Thank you. I have seen it.
You're not going to get a reversal there or in any other court. The girl is going to have a baby. She cannot go to school.
I don't think it's going to start a trend. These girls aren't likely to envy Dinah. Besides, this is a small town. They'll see her in the streets. What difference does it make?
The difference is that we do not endorse the low moral standards that have made teenage pregnancies a scandal in other parts of this country. We're not educators. I'm a lawyer. Gus Miller is an insurance broker, and so on. We're called upon to pass judgment on everything from textbooks to going steady. We're between politics and pressure with the PTA ready to jump down our throats. So we don't always agree. But on this, we were unanimous. We had a moral obligation to the children of our schools.
I understand your problems, but this girl has problems, too. And you're not doing anything to help to solve them. You're just pushing it away out of sight, and that's not good enough. Now, look, if you can't understand that, I'll have to try and make you understand it in court.
I want to go to court. I want to do everything I can to fight.
You're fighting much more than the school board's ruling, you know, Dinah.
Yes, Mr. Preston, because I resent the way I'm being treated. I made a mistake, certainly, but I'm willing to face up to it. I didn't try to kill my baby with an abortion. I could have done that. I could have gone to school and gotten my diploma. Nobody would have known anything. They would have understood that because it's their way. Don't you think my way is better?
Dinah, have you thought it's perhaps because you don't have too much choice?
I do. I could put the baby up for adoption, but I won't. I suppose everyone is going to be shocked by that idea, too. Their rules are, don't get pregnant, but if you do, get rid of it. And if it's too late and you have the baby, don't keep it. I want to keep that baby if I possibly can.
Dinah, I hope you can, but I must say it sounds an awful lot for a girl who wants to go on and get a complete education.
I know, and I'm scared.
Dinah, even if you don't graduate now, there are other ways to make up credits for a diploma. Night courses, home study.
No, it's terribly important to me to graduate from Mary Alice Trotter High School.
You know, that's quite a name for a high school.
Well, particularly since the only other high school in town is named for St. Francis of Assisi. Well, now, Mr. Kenneth Preston, what's our next move?
Well, the next move is Dinah's. She's a minor, and in order to petition the court for a reversal, she has to get her father's permission.
I just can't see why you'd want to. It doesn't make any sense. They're not going to let you go back to school the way you are.
Just let Mr. Preston try to argue the point.
Baby, as far as I can see, there's nothing to argue. The school board was right.
No, they're not right.
Well, let's not talk about it now, okay?
Not now, not ever. That's the way. You always reschedule things you don't like.
Look, that New York lawyer, she shouldn't have brought him here. People resent it.
He's here to help me.
Taking this in a public court would be like announcing it on Main Street.
Mr. Preston says the hearing will probably take place in the judge's chambers.
There won't be any hearing.
Daddy, please.
All right, well, look. Supposing you won your case in court, can you imagine what it'd be like going back to school the next day? The snickering? The dirty jokes? No, Dinah.
I don't care about that. I know what it would be like, and I don't care.
All right, look. You'd have to see this boy every day. The boy that did this to you. He's in some of your classes, isn't he?
We're not talking about the boy. We're talking about the
I still
hearing.
want to know his name.
Well, I'm not going to tell you.
How about his folks? Does he live around here?
Daddy, please.
Dinah, tell me who he is.
How many times are you going to ask me?
Until I find out.
Well, you're not going to.
All right. You want my permission to go to court? I'll give it. If you give me that boy's name.
You're my father. You're supposed to help me. I'm in trouble, and you want to make a bargain. What would happen if I gave you his name? Would you force him to marry me? Would you have him arrested? Would you beat him? What? I just don't see what good his name would do.
I want him to pay for it. Dinah, you can't face this alone.
No, and I can't expect any help from a father who tries to blackmail me. That's worse than what I did.
All right, all right. Take it to court. Do whatever you like. If that's the way you feel, I can't help you. I don't know you anymore.
How long has it been since your husband told you how great you looked in a new dress? Could it be your gray hair makes you seem older than you are? Hate that gray? Wash it away. Wash years away in minutes with Loving Care Hair Color Lotion by Clairol. Loving Care colors only the gray, washes it away without changing your natural hair color. Comes in 10 shades. Just choose the tone most like your own. Won't rub off, even in the darkest shades. Looks so fresh and natural. Makes your husband feel younger, too, just to look at you. And it's so easy. Used about once a month, Loving Care washes away gray and keeps it away without changing your natural hair color. So if you hate that gray, wash it away with Loving Care. Not a tint, better than a rinse. Hairdressers agree it's a fountain of youth for graying hair. Loving Care Hair Color Lotion by Clairol.
I have read your petition, Mr. Preston, and in view of the delicate subject matter, I've decided to hear the argument in chambers. All right, Mr. Preston, go ahead.
Well, Your Honor, this is an application pursuant to Article 78 of Civil Practice Law and Rules to review and set aside a determination of the school board of this town which dismissed the petitioner, Dinah Caldwell, from the Mary Alice Charter School due to the fact that she was 3 months pregnant.
Your Honor, the board's action is easily supported by long-established precedent.
Let us proceed in order, Mr. Ofterheide. I am willing to hear about your precedent after I have heard Mr. Preston's argument.
Your Honor, in her last term, with only 48 days remaining before graduation, Dinah Caldwell was prevented from completing her public education. Now, I think that the life of this otherwise exemplary girl should be tragically disrupted. It is arbitrary, it's capricious, and above all, it's unjust. Now, if Your Honor please, I'd like to submit as part of this petition a photocopy of this girl's school records. You'll see there that she's an honor student. She has an exceptionally high average, and there are no marks against her for misconduct. There are statements, however, in there from her teachers calling her a delightful girl, a credit to her family, a gentle young lady of the highest standards. There's also a scholarship recommendation in there from her school principal, Mr. Stevens. Now, I'm willing to admit that these references and this recommendation were made before these people knew that Dinah Caldwell was to have a baby in 6 months. But these are responsible educators. They were hired by the Board of Education. Is it possible that they all made such a wrong estimation of the girl?
Yes, because they didn't know what we know about her. The petitioner contends that her pregnancy alone is not good and sufficient cause for her dismissal. The school board reasons that it is undeniable proof of immoral behavior. Though we pity the girl for her trouble, we cannot permit her to bring this trouble into the schoolroom. Her presence there would be a constant and vivid reminder of the nature of her misconduct, and therefore would be a corrupting influence on her very impressionable schoolmates.
Don't ever call me at home again.
I had to talk to you.
Mrs. Trotter will be home any minute. What is it, Jeff?
I didn't know you were expelled until today. I just happened to hear it.
What did you hear?
One of the girls who works in the school office heard what old man Stevens said when he kicked you out. Is it true? Couldn't believe it. I didn't want to.
Miss Trotter will be here any minute. If she finds you here, she'll know.
How are you? How do you feel,
Fine, healthy. The doctor said I could have all the babies I want. Isn't that a lovely thought for a girl with a phony wedding ring?
I wish it never happened.
I didn't tell anyone your name, not even my father.
Thanks, but... what are you going to do?
I don't know. All I know is I'm going to have a baby.
Dinah, if you want, we could get married.
We made one mistake. Let's not make another.
You don't want to?
No.
But if it's the right thing...
No, it's the wrong thing. You're not ready to get married. You're not old enough. You're not finished with school. There's only one reason why, and so many reasons why not. I won't marry you because I don't love you.
You said you did. We said it to each other.
We were lying. We wanted it to be all right, and love makes it all right. Just say the magic word and stop thinking. Well, there aren't any magic words. There she is. Go home, Jeff, and please stay away.
I'm sorry, Dinah.
So am I. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Is it over?
Yes.
The court turned us down, Dinah. There was precedent against us. The argument was strong enough, but it wasn't. So the court ruled that your dismissal's a matter for the school board's collective conscience.
Dinah? I was once privileged to help alter the conscience of a nation. Well, I'm not going to be stopped by a few men on a school board. Now, we're going to take this matter to a higher court, the court of public opinion.
What if public opinion is against Dinah?
Then we'll have to change it. The hypocrites who persecute this luckless child say that they do it to save public morality. Well, I say that a morality based on blind intolerance is not worth saving. And,
Isn't that a little strong, Mary Alice?
just wait a minute, I'm not finished yet. Now, furthermore, I dare any member of the school board to match his private life or business morality against the character of the unmarried pregnant girl he has so readily damned.
To use a phrase I haven't heard in some time, this is a family newspaper.
It still prints the news, doesn't it?
Well, yes. In certain small portions that are not given over to advertising nostrums and knickknacks, we do occasionally print the news.
Well, a girl has been unfairly expelled from the school that bears my name, and I'm registering a public protest. Now, isn't that news enough for you, Ralph Hooper?
You know, Mary Alice, this takes me back to almost 50 years, to the time when you chained yourself to the governor's mansion. That was big news. You gave me an exclusive interview, which I sent out to all the wire services. Oh, say, did I ever tell you I got an offer from the New York World? Now, there was a newspaper.
You know very well I didn't come down here to reminisce.
No, I don't think we realized in those days how things were changing. So most of us couldn't see beyond the tips of our noses, from suffragette to space capsules. That's quite a span.
If you don't want to help me, Ralph, just say so.
Well, now, just hold your horses. After all, I don't see you often enough to pass up a chance to talk over old times. After all, how many are around that I can talk to like this?
But I'm concerned with today, not yesterday and the day before. Oh, why, there was a time when you wouldn't have had to think twice about giving me an honest answer.
Well, you're talking about things here that we don't talk about in the paper. Oh, I don't mind that so much. It's the blast at the school board. Well, that's going to raise a lot of hackles.
That never used to bother you.
Oh, never did.
Are you going to run that statement on the front page of tomorrow's paper?
Well, I'll see what I can do.
That's all I wanted to hear. Thank you, Ralph.
Well, anyway, it was nice seeing you again, Mary Alice. You know, we only seem to meet at funerals. It's good not to have to whisper across a coffin.
Goodbye, you old radical. I know I can count on you. It's not here. Not one word.
Well, did you check the editorial page?
Yes.
Well, maybe this edition was already set up. Is there a later edition?
Because he said he'd just think about it. Now, we must not blame poor old Ralph. Well, this is the fall that pride goeth before. I thought, Mr. Kenneth Preston, he lost a case in court, but I couldn't possibly lose. Oh, well, never mind. I'm an old woman. Sometimes I think like one. I just have to revise my whole way of thinking.
I know I let her down, and I feel bad.
I think you'd feel worse if you could have seen the hurt and the disappointment in her eyes, Mr. Cooper. That was an awful blow.
Well, as much as I wanted to help her out, I just couldn't print it. You know, I don't own this paper. I run it, but it belongs to a young fellow who I've only seen a couple of times. He owns a dozen newspapers in this part of the country, but he lives someplace else, down south where he can go swimming or something.
Well, did you have time to check for the owner?
I didn't have to. You realize how much it costs to run a newspaper nowadays? Why, some of our biggest advertisers are on that school board. You see how it is. We're stifled by economics.
Isn't it possible you're stifling yourself, Mr. Cooper? Mr. Cooper. Look, this is a one-newspaper town. If they don't advertise with you, where will they advertise? And you know as well as I do that a newspaper that doesn't take sides is only good for wrapping garbage.
Cooper. Whereabouts? And she's there now?
I protest an uncertain morality that condemns its own helpless victims. I believe that girls in trouble should be helped, not punished.
You tell him, Mary Alice.
I believe it's the duty of the school board to help these girls finish their education. I protest the denial of rights.
I told you she's a commie, always was. Oh, shut up, you think.
I protest the unfeeling decision that has led to banishment. I demand the reinstatement of a girl who has been unfairly expelled from this school, and I call upon the people of this community for their support.
You don't want to make any speeches. Mrs. Trotter, will you give me the keys?
Go ahead, Mary Alice. You haven't got anything to lose but your chains.
I can't give him the key. I threw it away.
Now go back to your box. Go back.
Why, it's perfectly
People who
ridiculous.
have no
Why
business
shouldn't
at the
that girl
school grounds, please
graduate?
be on your way.
Hey, I think you ought to change the name of the school.
Mrs. Trotter, we'll have to cut you loose, but I'm going to have to put you under arrest.
Just a moment, officer. Are you sure that's such a good idea?
Well, I can't let her stay here, can I? She's batty. What else can I do?
Trotter, are you all right? How do you feel?
Oh, I'm just fine now.
Up to your old tricks, huh?
Well, short of dying, Ralph Cooper, it's the only way I can get myself into your newspaper.
Okay, cut her loose.
Police brutality.
I'm taking names. Now go back to your classes, all of you.
Now, hold your horses. Let my boy take some pictures first.
Mr. Cooper, you're only making it worse. We'll have half the town out here.
Well, maybe so, but then the other half will have to read about it in the papers. Now, this is news. Nobody's going to stop me from printing the news. Now, what's this all about?
Well, it's the protest against the treatment of a girl who's been dismissed from this school for discriminatory reasons.
That's nonsense.
Racial discrimination?
Sexual discrimination.
Would you explain that, please?
Are you a relative?
No, I'm her lawyer.
Then you better tell her to go home and behave herself, or I will have to make an arrest. Did you hear me? I said I was going to make an arrest.
Don't let me stop you.
Relax. Relax in a man's world with Sir Walter Raleigh, the quality pipe tobacco. Mild Sir Walter Raleigh in the handy pouch pack.
Smells grand, packs right, smokes sweet, can't fight.
Sir Walter Raleigh is a choice blend of full-bodied Kentucky burleys, extra aged to the peak of mildness for richer taste. And you can feel how the handy pouch pack keeps Sir Walter Raleigh fresh and moist. Fresher than tobacco in old-fashioned tin cans. Relax with a pipe full of Sir Walter Raleigh, the brand of grand aroma.
Smells grand, packs right, smokes sweet, can't fight, keeps fresh. So fresh in the pouch.
Yes, keeps 44% fresher. Smells grand, packs right, smokes sweet, can't bite. Sir Walter Raleigh.
This portion of The Defenders has been presented by Sir Walter Raleigh. Smells grand, packs right, smokes sweet, can't bite. In the handy pouch pack and vacuum-packed canister.
This portion of The Defenders is presented by New Lux. New in shape, new in luxury. It softens as it cleanses. New Lux.
Am I asking the impossible? A detergent that gets the collar as clean as the rest of the shirt?
Lady, you're asking for new formula Whisk. Whisk puts its strength where the dirt is. Take half a cup, pour some full strength on extra dirty places. Then add the rest to clean your whole wash. powders must be diluted, never work full strength. Whisk washes everything cleaner than powders because Whisk puts its strength where the dirt is.
You know, Mrs. Trotter, I'll never forget the way you looked in those chains. The only words I can think of are grand and magnificent, and you were both.
Oh, I thought I looked awfully silly. I was very, very tired.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. If I'd known you were going to do it, I would have tried to stop you, but I'm glad you didn't.
Mrs. Trotter.
We'll waive a reading, Your Honor.
Very well.
Frank Harley, I haven't seen you for years. You're looking very well. You're a little heavier, perhaps.
Mrs. Trotter, we're in court.
No, Frank Harley, all my life.
Well, I know, but nevertheless...
The counselor is right. We must maintain the dignity of the court.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mrs. Trotter, I'm very sorry to see you here.
Well, thank you, but you needn't be.
Well, this is an arraignment, Mrs. Trotter. If you plead guilty, you'll be fined or sentenced accordingly. If it's not guilty, I'll set bail and arrange a date for the trial.
Yes, I remember.
Well, that's right. You've been through this before. The arresting officer says that you chained yourself to the high school entrance and caused quite a stir. Among other things, he has you down for loitering and disorderly conduct. I just don't understand this.
Well, I hope to make myself clear in time.
Well, I certainly hope so. Mrs. Trotter, how do you wish to plead?
Will I have a public hearing? Not guilty, Your Honor.
Old lady. That crazy old lady.
Oh, don't you worry about me.
I could never forgive myself if anything happened to you. Well, what if you had to go to jail?
Oh, well, I have a very good lawyer. And the truth is, I didn't get involved in all this purely for your sake. No, I've been living out of time too long, and I needed a good reason to get up in the morning. And I'm very, very grateful.
Dinah? Dinah. Dinah, I want you to come home.
Well, won't you? Aren't you going to come?
I want you to come home now, and I don't want you coming back here again.
What's wrong, Mr. Caldwell?
What's wrong? Well, not enough people found out when that New York lawyer went to court. So now you've got her on the front page. Smeared all over it.
You don't know what she's done for me.
She's made a fool of herself and ruined everything.
She wants people to listen. For me. She's done it for me.
Look, I want you to come home now and no more argument.
Daddy, you don't
Do I have to drag you home and lock you in to keep you there?
Caldwell, please. You're not punishing your dog. This is your daughter. Well, now, you're an intelligent man. Surely you can understand what we're trying to accomplish. Dinah is not a criminal, though that's the way everybody's treating her, including her own father. Now, please, let her alone.
You let her alone. Filling her head with these crazy ideas. Why, nobody in his right mind would do what you've done.
Daddy, stop
They ought to put you away. I just hope they do. Well, it's not like lunching at the Lawyers Club in New York City, but the food is passable and the drinks are good.
Well, I'll accept your judgment on that, Judge.
Ron, how about it? What are we going to do about Mrs. Trotter?
With your permission, Judge, I'll move to dismiss the charges. If you'll guarantee that she won't do the same thing all over again.
Well, Mr. Mabry, I don't know that I can give you a guarantee on that. I think if she doesn't get a hearing, she very well might do it again.
Well, are you saying that she would deliberately go about breaking the law again?
Well, I can't say for certain, no. She was a suffragette, and you know what they were.
Yes, but that was a long time ago.
I wonder if her age isn't the heart of the problem. I wonder if this isn't a question of senility.
No, absolutely not. Mrs. Trotter has all her faculties. There's no question about that.
Would you say that her behavior at the high school was normal and rational?
For you know, for her, yes. Look, Mrs. Trotter's the same as anybody in this room.
I'm not convinced.
I think you're trying to get off the hook. Admit it. You don't want to prosecute, all right. But don't try saying there's anything wrong with her mind, because it just isn't true.
There's one way to find out. I'm going to request a psychiatric examination of Mrs. Trotter.
Well, he's in an embarrassing position. He doesn't want to prosecute an historical figure. Yet he's afraid to embarrass him further if he doesn't. In fact, it's a tactical move. Doesn't believe for 1 second that your act was anything but reasonable.
Was it reasonable?
Well, yes. Oh, it was reasonable. You had very good reason for it. On the front page of today's newspapers, wasn't it?
Yes, well, I'm not so sure. I'm suddenly not very sure of anything. Do you know that a person could slip into his dotage and not even know it? I've seen our senator confidently votes against every worthwhile piece of legislation. An aged writer pens columns of castigation against dead enemies. Poor old Don Quixote slashes away at windmills.
You know, Mrs. Trotter, whatever the results of your examination with the state psychiatrist, we are going to have our own. If both of those reports agree that you're competent, you'll stand trial. And that's what you want. If there's some conflict in the reports, well, Judge Harley will call for testimony in court and you'll have a hearing. Right, it's not the kind of hearing we expected, but it will be a public hearing anyway.
See if my poor old brain is addled. Suppose those psychiatrists agree that I'm not able to think clearly. That I have gone round the bend. What then?
That won't happen because it isn't true. You know that isn't true. And don't you give me Don Quixote again, either.
It's a shattering thing to have your senator questioned. Have you always been sure of me?
All right. Before I met you, I guess I expected you to be, well, a little odd. That's a natural suspicion one generation has for another. I expected you to be an old battle axe with some dumb kind of funny hat on. But I'll tell you one thing. I was never more wrong about anything in my life. Mrs. Trotter, you're not a senile old senator. And you're not addle-pated, and you're not Don Quixote, and you're not round the bend. You know what you are? You're the greatest lady I know. You understand that?
Thank you, Kenneth.
You ready to see the state's doctor?
Well, if they're going to pick at my brain, they might as well hear what's on it.
Her only close friend for some years has been a young girl. Mostly she's lived in solitude, very much within herself. Go on, Doctor. Her sudden departure from that quiet, ingrown existence is symptomatic of deterioration. Senility. Is there anything else upon which you base your opinion? Other departures from her normal way of life, such as her dramatic reenactment of an episode that had once made her the center of attention. In my opinion, Mrs. Trotter's performance at the high school was nothing more than exhibitionism. It's common to senility, the compulsion to draw attention to oneself. And with reasonable medical certainty, that was the case. I believe that to be so, yes. Thank you, Doctor.
Dr. Berger, aside from today in this courtroom, how many times have you seen Mrs. Trotter?
When I examined her, of course.
How many times have you examined her?
Once.
I beg your pardon?
Once.
Once? Only once, for a few minutes, and yet your flash findings are solemnly accepted by the state. I wonder if this is the same kind of comprehensive examination you give your new patients? The fast once-over and a snap judgment?
Objection. Sustained. There's no jury to impress, Counselor. Is that all?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. You're excused. Donald Stevens, please. Just a minute. What does this witness have to do with Mrs. Trotter's present competence to stand trial?
I want to offer testimony for the sole purpose of shedding some light on her present mental capacity.
All right. I'll allow it on that one issue only.
Donald Stevens, please. Mrs. Trotter told me what she was going to do. She came into my office unannounced and said that she was going to chain herself to the school entrance.
What was Mrs. Trotter's general appearance at this time?
She was pale and trembling. Her eyes were red-rimmed as if she'd been crying. Her hat was askew. Her hair was sticking out beneath it in an untidy fashion. I could sum up her appearance in one word. eccentric.
A woman's born to softness, and that's the way it is. A soft and magic creature some man will call his.
What makes a woman feel beautiful? A soft and lovely complexion. Today, there's a new Lux that softens your skin.
Lux softens as it cleanses.
Look at Lux. The shape is new. Feel new Lux. Feel its special blend of beauty ingredients soften and moisturize your skin. For Lux Beauty Lather does not dry.
Lux softens as it cleanses.
A woman's born to softness, and that's the way it is.
Care for the womanly softness that is naturally yours with new Lux.
Lux softens as it cleanses.
Now, what happened after Mrs. Trotter came to your office and told you what she was going to do?
I left her there and went out to look for my assistant principal.
After searching for your assistant, did you return to your office?
Oh, let me see. Did I or didn't I? Yes. Yes, I did go back, but Mrs. Trotter wasn't there. She had stepped out into the hall. I found her talking to one of the senior boys who fled as I approached. I later found out that she had given him a dime to telephone the newspaper.
Then what did Mrs. Trotter do?
She went outside. I was relieved. I thought she had gone home. Classes were changing, and I was diverted by some student horseplay. Then one of the girls shouted, "Look," and pointed outside. I went to the door and saw Mrs. Trotter chained to the entrance structure.
Did she speak at this time? Did she say anything that you can remember?
Yes. She said, "I only hope I still have the strength."
And did you reply?
No. She wasn't talking to me. She was talking to herself.
In your opinion, was Mrs. Trotter's behavior on this occasion rational or irrational?
In my opinion, sir, irrational.
Mr. Stevens? Do you ever talk to yourself?
No.
Not even while you're, say, in front of the mirror shaving?
Not ever.
Would you please read the witness's response to Mr. Maybury's question? Did you return to your office?
Now let me see. Did I or didn't I? Yes. Yes, I did.
That's enough, thank you. All right, Mr. Stevens, let me ask you again. You ever talk to yourself?
Well, yes, in that respect, when I'm trying to recall something.
Well, then, you do talk to yourself.
Yes.
You consider yourself eccentric.
Objection, the witness is not on trial here.
I'll overrule that objection. It's a proper cross. Witness may answer.
No, I do not consider myself eccentric.
By the way, Mr. Stevens, when Mrs. Trotter came into your office, I think you said with her hat askew and her hair sticking out in an untidy fashion, I wondered, had it occurred to you that she might have come away from home in a very big hurry?
No, it didn't.
I see. All right, Mr. Stevens. You said Mrs. Trotter came into your office unannounced. Were you surprised to see her?
Yes, I certainly was. She broke in on a very busy day, I might add.
So you felt that she had no business there and that she didn't belong there?
No, certainly not without an appointment. You don't just march in on people.
Mr. Stevens, there's a large oil portrait in the main hall of the school. Whose portrait is that?
Mrs. Trotter's.
What's the name of the school?
Mary Alice Trotter High School.
Her name's over the main entrance, isn't it?
Yes.
The building was dedicated to Mrs.
Yes.
Trotter. The whole school itself is a public monument to Mary Alice Trotter.
Yes,
All right, well, now
suppose
let
you
me
might
ask
call
you
it
this. What was it Mrs. Trotter said to you? What did she tell you that was so outlandish? And I think you said irrational.
She said she was going to chain herself to the school.
All right. Did she say why?
Yes. It was kind of a protest.
A protest. A protest against what?
The decision to expel one of our senior girl students.
And why was the girl going to be expelled?
Objection, irrelevant and immaterial. And this is not proper cross-examination. Mr. Preston's trying to open up a whole new line of inquiry.
How about that, Mr. Preston?
Well, Your Honor, I think Mr. Maybury opened the door when he asked the witness to tell part of what was said in his office.
Well, what does this have to do with the issue?
Your Honor, a psychiatrist, Mr. Maybury's witness, whose examination of Mrs. Trotter was brief and, I might add, pointless, sat on the stand and declared under oath he thought her act of protest was compulsive exhibitionism.
Now, Your Honor has read the reports by the defense's examining psychiatrist, so I don't feel it's necessary to call him as a witness. Of course, I could produce 10 doctors with 10 different opinions, but I don't have to, because here on the stand is a man who knows Mrs. Trotter had a reason for what she did. He knows. She told him so.
Your Honor, this is not germane. I'm inclined to allow it. The question of motivation is important. You may continue, Mr. Preston.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Stevens, you said Mrs. Trotter told you she was going to protest the decision to expel a girl student. Why was that girl expelled?
She was pregnant.
No further questions.
I've been looking for you. Who said you could come to court?
I didn't need permission.
Did he tell you to come?
I wanted
I'm awfully
to come.
sorry to take so long, but I wanted to make sure that my hat wasn't awry and my hair sticking out. We're just going to lunch, Mr. Caldwell. Won't you join us?
No, thank you. Miss Caldwell and I have a thing or two to discuss. Maybe you'd like to go on. I'll catch up with you later.
We'll just be down the street at the Greasy Spoon.
Well, Mr. Caldwell, I think if you have any objections or threats or insults, I'd like to hear them. Don't say them for Mrs. Trotter's ears alone.
I'm only thinking of my girl, Mr. Preston. I've raised her since her mother died. Maybe I haven't done too good a job, but I'll try and make up for that. But don't call her on the witness stand. Please.
I'm trying to do what's best for Donnie, you know.
Well, then don't put her up there in front of everybody. Make her answer a lot of questions. Please don't. People know too much about her already. Just leave her out of this. I don't want her involved with that old woman.
That old woman, Mr. Caldwell, is in court because of your daughter. You wanted to hide Dinah away to spare your own feelings. Mrs. Trotter risked her peace of mind and her reputation to bring this thing out in the open. Do you have any idea why Dinah asked the woman next door for help? Because she couldn't get any help from the man in the next room. Well, Mr. Caldwell, I'm not going to call Dinah. I'm putting on the stand only one witness.
You do swear that the evidence which you give in the matter now being heard shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and so you affirm?
I do.
Be seated.
Your name is Mary Alice Trotter.
Mary Alice Wardlow before I married Mr. Trotter.
When was that, Mrs. Trotter?
March 24th, 1916.
When was the last time that you were arrested?
April 30th, 1916.
Could you tell us the charge?
Yes. They said I was a public nuisance, and I suppose I was. I meant to be.
Now then, Mrs. Trotter, would you tell the court your reason for that?
Well, I was a suffragette. That was the only way I could call attention to what we wanted, votes for women. The newspapers were all unsympathetic. The courts were made up of men who were against us. We had to demonstrate.
How did you go about that?
Well, in various ways, some spectacular, some quite ordinary. I remember one girl who stood on a railroad track to stop a train with a United States senator on board, and the engineer was so sure that she'd get out of the way, he didn't even slow down. He was wrong. Of course, my way was much safer. I chained myself to the front porch of the governor's mansion.
Did you ever at any time feel a compulsion to make an exhibition of yourself?
No, we drew lots.
And you lost.
I won.
Did you chain yourself then the same way that you chained yourself to the high school?
Oh, yes. But you know that chain was much heavier this time? I don't know why. It was the same chain. My husband got it back from the courts. We kept it in the attic.
Mrs. Trotter, you told Mr. Stevens that you were going to protest the decision to expel a pregnant girl. You feel you were right to do that?
Oh, yes.
Do you also feel the authorities were right to arrest you?
Well, yes, I broke the law.
In other words, it was that important to you to do it, wasn't it?
It was. It is. Oh, not only because I know that girl and I'm very fond of her, but I think it's most dreadfully wrong when a girl in trouble is scorned by hypocrites and disavowed by those who govern her. I believe that a pregnant girl, married or not, has a perfect right to live in our society. I defy anyone to give me one good, basic, scientific reason why that girl shouldn't finish school with a class. If I have to be crazy to hold that view, then I'm crazy as a bedbug and always have been.
Now, Mrs. Trotter, didn't it occur to you that decent people didn't want this girl in school because they were afraid of the same thing happening to their own daughters?
Well, I've heard of decent parents arranging dates for their 10-year-old children to assure their popularity. Oh, there's a lot of things to be afraid of in this world. We're not all afraid of the same thing. Well, I'm not fighting for the right for unwed teenage girls to become pregnant. Personally, I'm against sexual misconduct at any age. I'm fighting for the right for a girl in trouble to be treated decently. And that includes granting her an education and a chance for a full life just as any other member of this community.
Mrs. Trotter, do you contend that you seriously believed you could do something about a social problem by fastening a chain to your wrist?
No, but I believed I could earn the right to talk about it in public. I happen to be old-fashioned enough to believe in the right to freedom of speech. But I'm realistic enough to know that a speech doesn't mean anything if you don't have an audience. Demonstrations are in the American tradition. Mr. Mayberry.
An act of protest has been called a symptom of mental disorder. Now, I think if that's true, this country has been founded by some very sick people. For instance, the Boston Tea Party was an act of protest, demonstration against unfair taxes. Of course, there were those who cried out against the vandalism, many others who thought dumping all that tea in the harbor was insane. This was followed by a documented protest, the Declaration of Independence. There were people who thought that was insane. A century later, many respectable people were outraged by abolitionists who called for an end to slavery, and so on and so on. The history of the United States is a history of protest. A protest against child labor, against slave wages, against unfair working conditions, against dangerous working conditions, against bomb tests, against discrimination, and so on. Mary Alice Trotter is a part of that protest, and I think she's a part of that tradition, more important. And far from being mad, has often raised the one sane voice against the madness of the world. Thank you.
Gentlemen, I won't have to reserve decision. I find nothing to suggest mental incapacity, senile deterioration, or any degree of what the law chooses to call incompetence. I find the defendant competent in all respects and able to stand trial.
Your Honor, I move that the charges be dismissed.
Splendid job.
It's my pleasure. Oh, Mr. Caldwell, would you like to congratulate them? They won the first round. Excuse me.
Oh, Tom, do you have a minute? Oh, I'll catch up with you around here. Excuse me. Tom, I was wondering if there's any chance of the school board changing its ruling if I talk to them.
Well, I can't tell you that. Maybe. Mrs. Trotter has stirred up something. I can't tell what's going to happen. If you'd like to come to a meeting.
I would.
All right. You know where?
Right.
Turner?
Half an hour ago, I didn't think I'd be able to hold up my head. Now I don't feel a bit tired.
Well, I suppose it's a little early to go dancing. I'd like to take you for a walk in the park, I think.
Delighted. Do you think we could make it down Main Street so everybody can see I'm not in jail? Well, not today, anyway.
I'd like that.
I'm Ed Reimers for Allstate. What might these interesting-looking courtroom exhibits have to do with the high cost of auto insurance? A worn-out brake cylinder, a burned-out headlight, a chunk of blown-out tire. Well, these are mechanical failures that cause accidents, and accidents raise insurance rates. But there's one factor that does even more to raise insurance rates, and that's bad driving. The recklessness and carelessness that causes accidents. Allstate believes it grossly unfair to penalize good drivers, skillful drivers, Unfair to charge them the same high insurance rates as the driver who has accidents. Allstate makes it a point to reward the good driver with special low rates. At Allstate, good drivers pay less, substantially less than the drivers who have accidents. And most drivers, 8 out of 10 to be exact, will qualify for Allstate's good driver savings. So see an Allstate agent soon. You're in good hands with Allstate.
This is E.G. Marshall. Our next show takes up the challenge to the law of a boy too young to be confined, but not old enough to go free.
But the question is, who's going to be responsible for you? Who'll post bail? Who'll guarantee your appearance in court? Now, I gather your mother won't?
No.
What about your father?
My parents are divorced, Mr. Preston. It wasn't so bad. You left me alone.
And that's what you wanted, huh?
Yeah.
I may be a lousy mother, but you're a lousy kid.
Look, if I took you in, we haven't beaten them. We've admitted we can't do it on our own. I'm no different from your mother, from the Davises. Don't need them. Don't need me. Please, now, don't need me.
How can justice serve the needs of one small boy? Be sure to see our next episode starring E.G. Marshall, Patrick O'Neill, Peter Laser, and me, Bob Reed.
Very good pancakes.
Thank you.
Did something new?
Mm-hmm. It's the syrup. Mrs. Butterworth's mapley flavored syrup. There's butter mixed in it. 2% in every bottle.
Butter and syrup? That's different.
I hear they use 3 tons of butter each week to make Mrs. Butterworth's.
3 tons? People must be buying a lot of it. You better buy some more.
I did.
Next week, this portion of The Defenders will be brought to you by the Allstate Insurance Companies, whose policies now include protection for your home and your family, as well as your car. You're in good hands with Allstate.